Hello and welcome back. I hope you're all doing really well. A lot to cover today, so I'll be jumping into it fairly quickly, especially as we're seeing the tensions between Russia and Ukraine still not showing signs of easing anytime soon. This will continue to weigh on investors' minds as people de-risk positions. Naturally, crypto being one of the more risky positions that you could hold at the moment, as some would say. Anyway, jumping into the crypto bubbles for the weekly performance, we can still see some of our favorable coins. Engine down 4.5% on the week, Ripple 5%, as well as XLM down just over 3%. I can't seem to find Hedera on here at the moment, but that's not doing too well either. I've said it time and time again, these are all opportunities within the markets. We're looking at the long term, so less interested in what the performance over the last week has been, especially given the world climate at the moment. If we flick over, one of the positive signs that I did want to touch on briefly is that we, over the last sort of 30-day period, or sort of since February the 10th, we've had this decrease in the total value locked. So this is the total amount of cash effectively locked up on decentralized finance platforms within the crypto space. That has been gradually falling. However, it appears to have bottomed out around the 25th of February, and we're now shooting back up towards the $70 billion mark locked in DeFi. This just goes to show that there's still a lot of favor towards decentralized finance in the crypto space, and the money is still flowing or sloshing around within the markets. It isn't just this, the plug hasn't just been pulled effectively on the market. So some sort of positive news there, that we are starting to see that momentum come back within the DeFi space, which is brilliant. Another thing as well is that Coinbase has released its Q4 user growth. So it's reported sharp revenue and user growth in Q4. This again is just bullish for the general exposure of the crypto markets. We can see that Coinbase's revenue, trading volume, and monthly transacting users, as well as platform assets, all rose in the final quarter of the year, during which the company became the first publicly traded exchange for cryptocurrency. The company generated $2.5 billion of net revenue and $840 million of net income in the final 3 months of 2021, Coinbase reported on Thursday. Assets on the platform had also grown from $255 billion to $278 billion quarter over quarter. So this is just kind of what we're seeing anyway in the crypto markets, of this general adoption piece slowly ramping up as time goes over, and the financial statements that Coinbase has released, due to being a publicly listed company, ratify those claims. So again, we should be bullish that the crypto space is not going anywhere anytime soon, and this growth is likely to continue into the future. If we flick over, there's some tweets by Blockworks that I wanted to cover quickly. As some of you may know, if you're keeping up with the Russia-Ukraine news, there have been a lot of financial sanctions that have been imposed on Russia to try and attempt to stem the economy's growth. You don't really want to be feeding a war machine, so to speak. So there are some tweets here talking about how Russian financiers could turn to crypto to circumvent sanctions, industry experts say. Naturally, this not being bullish at all for the current market, well, the current world climate effectively. However, it is a bullish case for cryptocurrency, as it just goes to show that it can disrupt the standard financial system that's in place. And I wanted to look at this in a more positive light as well, that we see millions in Bitcoin is pouring into Ukraine from donors. So looking less at the Russian side of the coin and looking more at the Ukrainian side of the coin, we can see that a lot of Ukrainians, due to the sort of government action and the martial law that's been put into place, a lot of cash has dried up. People have tried to withdraw their life savings to flee the country, and where there's not been assets available for them, a lot of them have left the country with their bank accounts effectively being frozen. They have then been able to turn to cryptocurrency to receive remittance payments from around the globe, as well as donations to sort of help relocate their families. And those that did have assets held in cryptocurrency have been able to take them across the border without really having to worry and spend it. And there have been several anecdotal pieces from people or Ukrainian citizens turning around and saying they've lost their life savings that were locked up in the traditional financial system. However, they are now surviving off of their crypto investments, such as Ethereum and Bitcoin, etc. So again, a really bullish case, and just goes to show the resilience due to the decentralization of the cryptocurrency market. So big bullish news there for crypto in general. We can also see here what I was just talking about a second ago, is that the Ukrainian central bank did suspend electronic cash transfers, which has bolstered the use for cryptocurrencies. This is everything that people have been talking about for a long time. A lot of people turned around and said it was a load of nonsense and that there would never be a need for this decentralized type of asset. However, it's just proving that even in the worst of times, i.e. during a war, that cryptocurrency has its benefits, and benefits that are really powerful in a humanitarian standpoint. So really good news in general for the crypto markets. Another thing that I published on Twitter, so I put together this infographic earlier today. So if you guys follow me on Twitter, you might have seen this. And it's just documenting the use cases of Hedera by sector. I've mentioned it in several different videos already. However, the Hedera use cases, the companies utilizing Hashgraph already are spread across 7 out of 11 of the economic sectors, and this is growing. So we've got use cases in the technology sectors, healthcare, financials, consumer discretionary, consumer staples, communications, and real estate. The 4 sectors that are remaining are those such as materials, industrials, and energy, to name a few. However, this just goes to show how widespread the utilization of Hashgraph is and how much more it will continue to develop in the future. Some really bullish news there, I thought. 2 more use cases I wanted to touch on today as well. We've got Everywhere being one of the first, so digitally track and monitor critical or even high value assets. So this is talking about the vaccine sort of supply chain. So minus 70 degrees C is required for vaccine storage for C19, 200 plus medical refrigerators, and 500,000 records or events per day. So the industry's Internet of Things provides connected sensors for healthcare, ensuring that safety and proper procedures are kept in instances like temperature monitoring. Monitoring the temperature of key assets like the C19 vaccine is of interest to multiple parties with a liability and risk to be had. Everywhere wanted a more secure method to manage this device data than a traditional database. Everywhere uses the Hedera consensus service to keep an immutable, tamper-proof and verifiable record of sensor data. So for example, company A claims that the vaccine has been stored at 70 degrees C for the last 4 weeks. If that was entered into a database, it might be submitted and it can be tampered with. Once this is logged directly from the sensors into the via the consensus service to the Hashgraph effectively, it's completely immutable, cannot be modified, and the sensors data was final. There's complete finality in the data that's written. So just again, this is another use case exploring DLT and Hashgraph technology in general. I'll leave links to the description for Everywhere, but they are effectively a solutions provider for those looking to have robust, tamper-proof information in this sort of healthcare space again. The other use case that I want to touch on, which is new as well, is Melexi. So Melexi is a global digital ecosystem powered by public distributed ledger technology that enables wholesale import and finance of food and agricultural products in the United States, Europe, Africa, India, and the UAE. So this is another supply chain driven use case. As I touched on one previously in another video, check that out if you haven't seen it. And in my opinion, this makes VeChain kind of redundant. It just goes to show that Hashgraph is more than capable of providing use cases to these companies via the Hashgraph and consensus services than what VeChain is able to do in a much cheaper, scalable, and robust manner. Anyway, Melexi as a platform needed a cost-effective and scalable public distributed ledger to prove the authenticity of transactional documents and the credibility of counterparties, as well as their ratings and reviews. Melexi is using Hedera to strengthen the trust between parties, substantiating both counterparty credibility and transactional integrity. This results in financial benefits for the platform stakeholders and the market as a whole. So again, this is just another use case which is using the security, scalability, and finality effectively to build trust in global online marketplaces and have an immutable and integral database effectively, is what's going on here. Again, like I've covered on the channel so many times, there are so many different use cases. They are flying out of all different angles across all economic sectors. The writing's on the wall, in my opinion, for Hedera, that we are going through this sort of revolution effectively of businesses onboarding and utilizing the consensus service wherever possible, just because it is so effective. It does what it says on the tin effectively. Link here as well for Melexi's website, but we can see here democratizing cross-border trade, so supply chain driven, which is fantastic to see. Anyway, that wraps up the rest of this episode. Bullish news, as always, for Hedera. Mentioned it before, and I'll say it again. In times of fear is the time to accumulate. In times of greed, it's the time to sell. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.